Hey everyone, it's Nick from websmithing.com. I wrote the GPS tracker software, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Android client application. To do that, we're going to have a look at Android Studio, and I'll bring up the application here. As you can see, there are 5 classes here. One, the GPS tracker activity, which is the one and only screen that we have, and then 4 other classes. We have a alarm receiver, GPS tracker alarm receiver, which this is called once a minute or once every 5 minutes, whatever is set by the user in the radio dialog or the radio boxes that we'll be seeing in a minute. This one here, GPS tracker boot receiver. This is called when the this is a class that's called when the phone reboots. The application will be listening for the boot completed event, and then when the boot completed event happens, this object here is created, and its on receive message or on receive method is called. So we'll be taking a look at that also in a moment. The location service class is where pretty much all the heavy lifting is done. This class is it's just a service. It runs in the background and it runs on the main thread. But we'll take a look at this and discuss it in detail. What it does. It does basically 2 things. It gets the location and it sends it off to our update website, which you can see right here. This is our update website right now. Well, actually, default upload website is our update website, and we'll see how that works in a moment. Our last class here is a very simple wrapper class. If you take a look here, there's a library called Android Async HTTP, and this library is it's a really great library that allows you to do asynchronous HTTP calls, and it works in the background from a background service, which is really nice. So it works really well. So let's take a look at the different classes, and first let's take a look at the design of the application so you can see what we're talking about. Here we have a username field, and we have our upload website field. We have a set of radio buttons. This is the interval. It goes from 1 minute up to 1 hour in different intervals. And then we have a tracking button. Okay, the tracking button, if we take a look here, we're using a drawable, and this is the only thing really in the layout that might be a little bit confusing to people who haven't used them before. So I just want to show you what this drawable looks like. It's called red tracking button. And here you can see it just describes the shape of the button, the color, padding, and so forth, these kinds of things. There's a red one and a green one, and you'll see in a moment how these 2 are used. But for right now, you can just see by looking at the design, we're using the red one here. And basically, it just changes from red to green depending on whether we're tracking or not. It's that simple. Okay, so let's get on to our activity. And in our onCreate, we have a couple things going on here. We have our default upload website, which I spoke about earlier. And this one here, it just sends, what it does is it sends our location data to this PHP page. Upload, how did I make that go away? Well, it sends it to that PHP page, update location.php. And here we have, we open up a shared preference file here, and we set a currently tracking variable to false the first time around when it first starts up. And this variable here, currently tracking, is pretty important. We use it throughout. I use it throughout the application. Here we have we set up a couple of listeners. We have this one here that when a user taps the radio buttons to change intervals, that will actually save the interval to shared preferences. So that's pretty simple. This one here, track location, when the user taps the track location button, um, the track location method is called, and let's take a look at that. Probably a good place to start. Okay, the first thing that happens is we go check save user settings. Let's take a look at save user settings. This one here, it first checks to see if the text fields are empty or if they have spaces. If they are empty, then return false, and we're going to generate a toast from that that tells the user that they have to fill in the field. So that's right here. This is where we just get the user field, the data from the two fields. We check to see if the length of either of those is 0, and if it is, we send them a toast saying, please fill in both fields. Usernames cannot have spaces. So that's pretty simple. Here we go on to check if the website is reachable. This is the first time that we actually use our loopj. I call it loopj. It's what the name of the library. The loopj HTTP client. These are static methods, and you can see here that when we send, I'm just doing a get to the default upload website, and if it's reachable, then we're good, and if it's not, then we send a toast to the to the user saying can't reach the website you've entered. So we're actually letting the user know that that whatever they typed in is there's a problem with it. Okay, so back to this. We just simply we're save user settings. We're just grabbing the radio buttons, whichever one it is, and the username and default upload website, and we're committing it to shared preferences. So we're saving it to shared preferences. Okay, so back to our track location here. We've done two things so far. We check to see if the user settings are saved. Next, we check to see if Google Play is enabled. If it's not enabled, we just send a toast to the user saying go into settings and set that setting. Okay, now here we are back to we're looking at our currently tracking variable. If we are currently tracking, then and somebody has tapped that button, that means they want to stop tracking. So what we need to do is we're going to call the cancel alarm manager, set currently tracking to false, and set our session ID to an empty string. And if we are not currently tracking, that means we want to start. So we're going to start the alarm manager, and which we'll take a look at next. And we set our currently tracking to true. And here we set a few of the variables that we are going to be using during tracking, and then we commit those back to shared preferences. And then lastly, we set our tracking button state. This just changes our tracking button from red to green. That's the most important thing in this class here. The only other thing I really want to show you is the start alarm manager. Here we have an alarm manager. An alarm manager is an interface to the Android system alarm services. So this allows us to set here we'll be setting a repeating alarm. Get this thing out of the way. Here we'll be setting a repeating alarm, and we have an interval right here, interval in minutes, and that's what the user selects by using the radio buttons. So whatever that interval is, we set a repeating alarm. And what happens if you look up here, we have this GPS tracker alarm receiver, one of the classes we spoke of, which is right here. We'll get to this class just after this. This GPS tracker alarm receiver has one method, and that method is called every interval in minutes. So that's how the thing works. When we go to cancel the alarm, it just simply cancels the alarm manager and sets it to null, turns it off. Then we're done. Let's go take a look at the GPS tracker alarm receiver and see what's going on there. And here you have our one and only method for this class. This is a broadcast receiver, and this is a wakeful broadcast receiver. And I'll explain that in a moment. But what happens is the alarm manager, whatever the interval is set to, starts a service, our location service, every 1 minute or every 5 minutes. So that's how this part works here. This wakeful broadcast receiver, it has what's called a wake lock, a partial wake lock. And what that means, when you have this partial wake lock, it's basically saying, keep the CPU, don't let the CPU sleep until this service here is done. So if you don't have a partial wake lock, what will happen is once this on receive creates a service here, starts a new service, it will just end, and then the CPU will go back to sleep, and the service will have to die because there's nothing to process it. So you need a wakeful broadcast receiver for this particular in this particular instance. So we have this thing starting here. The next thing we want to take a look at is this other receiver. We have two receiver classes here. This one is different. This one is a broadcast receiver, where the other one was a wakeful broadcast receiver. This one doesn't need an extra wake lock, because all it's doing is it's processing the code right within this on receive. It goes through this code and is done. So we don't need an extra wake lock here. And as you can see here, we're setting an alarm manager. We're checking our currently tracking variable, the one I said that was important earlier. We're checking that. And if we're currently tracking, then we start our alarm manager again, repeating as we did before. So every time that the phone reboots, this on receive method gets called, because this application is listening for that boot message, that boot event. Okay, so that's these two things, and I want to show you. There's one important thing here for these broadcast receivers that you need to see, and it's in the manifest file. If we take a look here, you can see that these receivers are registered in the manifest file here. We have our GPS, our boot receiver, and if you take a look inside here, it says we have this filter here, and this filter is looking for boot completed events. So when the phone boots, it sends out this event. We're listening for it, and when that happens, it goes to this class, and it creates this object and calls this on receive method here. I mean, this happens. Okay, so that's how that happens. Back to our Android manifest, you see we have the other receiver has been declared here, and also the service. So these things need to be declared in your manifest. While we're here, we have this metadata for our Google Play services that's required. And here we have our permissions. Well, receive boot completed. That's the whole business that we need. This particular application needs to be listening for that boot completed, and we need to set those permissions. We need to get the permissions from the user. The wake lock, we need permissions for that as well. The internet, so we can send our location data to the website, and then these two for our to get our location by either Wi-Fi, GPS, cell towers, or other methods. Okay. This location service is the last class that I want to look at here. And when this class starts up, we get our default upload website, and we have our method here called onStart command. Now this method here is called when the service is created. The onStart command is called, and if something else tries to start this service, another service will not be started, but what will happen is that onStart command will be called again. So, for instance, I have my alarm manager where that's calling. If we go back here to this alarm receiver here, we have this context.start service. If this is called twice on a service that's already running on the location service, a second service is not started. What's happening is that the onStart command will be called again. So if that happens, you can see all I'm doing here is I'm calling start tracking, which is right below. But if we're already tracking, we don't want to start tracking again. We don't want to start this whole thing up again. We just want to let this one finish. So the first thing I do is I check this variable here, currently processing location, and if it's true, if I am currently processing a location, then this just falls through. Nothing happens. But if it's false, the first thing I do is I set this to true, so no other processing can happen, or no other attempts to start tracking can happen, and we start tracking. And for this thing here, this start sticky, in case you're wondering, this service here, if the phone somehow stops this service, start sticky means that at its next available chance, it will restart the service and keep processing until it's completed what it needs to be doing. Okay, so here we have the start tracking. The first thing we do is we get a location client from Google Play Services, and we need to connect to the connect. Location client needs to connect to the Google Play Services, and when it does connect, it will call this method right here, onConnected. So once we have our connection, we're going to create a location request object. We're going to set its interval to 1 second, and we're going to make this high accuracy. We're going to say, okay, make this. We want to get the those locations. We want them fast and as accurate as possible. So it's going to turn on whatever it needs, GPS, to get the highest accuracy. Below that, we do a request location updates, and this means that we're going to be getting locations at an interval of about once every second. And when these updates start, when these location updates start, this is called on location changed. So on location changed, location objects are coming here every second, and when we have one that is within 100 meters, that's as accurate as I want right now, then stop the location updates. Let's stop this shut the whole thing down, shut the radios down, stop the location updates, and then send the location data to the website. It's right here. So we're going to send this location data. I have this section here. If first time getting position, it may look a little odd, but what I'm doing in this section is I'm getting the location data, and I'm going to set it into shared preferences. I'm going to set the latitude and the longitude in shared preferences. I'm going to call that previous location. And so every time I come through, I get the previous location and I get the current location right here, and I use the distance to method to get the distance between those two points. And once I add that distance, I can add that to the total distance in meters and keep a running tally. And I save that total distance in meters back to shared preferences right here when I do an edit.commit. So this whole little section allows us to get our total distance in meters. Below that, I create a request params object here, and this is from that library, the Android Async HTTP library, and this allows us to create our post parameters. And this is a great library. I mean, it has this stuff here is just really useful. This request param object is just this class is just a really useful class. We fill in all everything here. Our session ID, you see that's going to be the UUID that we created for this particular session. We then do a We then do a post here, back from this class here. This is a wrapper class around this library here, and here you can see we have a post. So in this, where is our location service? Here it is. We do a post here, and we send our data to the website. Then this class is just pretty much is done. So let's take a look at this here. If we go to our emulator, and I put a username in there, and I'm going to start tracking. And then what we need to do here is I'm going to go to the terminal, and we need to telnet into that emulator, localhost and 5554. If you take a look here, the 5554 is the port, so we're gonna telnet into this here, and then we're going to do a geo fix. We're gonna send the emulator a latitude and longitude 3 and 47.61. That should be Seattle. Okay, so we sent that. Let's take a look down here. Okay, send location to website success. 47 looks like it sent our location. Checking that in Logcat. Let's go to the website now and refresh this. This here is a test website that I I've spoken of. And now let's go to, you see there's two of these, because I did two different tests. Let's see if I can figure out the most recent. This one. Okay, and there we have it. The location, you can see updated, the websmithing website, and there we have our location data right smack in the middle of Seattle. Final location using the fused location provider, which is the new location provider, which makes Android location so much better and so much easier to use. I highly recommend using that. The new location, Google services Google service location services. Okay, so that's everything that you in the application. Thank you very much for watching this. And if you have any questions, please go to websmithing.com, and you can ask questions on pretty much any post, read some of the posts, and if you have a question about the application, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer your question. And thanks for watching. Bye.